Okay, let's start letting people in here. Hey, folks. Good to see you all here. Welcome to Piantech Radio Hour. Um, I'll give a quick introduction here. It's an interesting day. I'm actually coming to you live from Barcelona, Spain. Just saw the Sagrada Familia today. Uh, beautiful, I don't know what you call it. I guess it's more than a church. But a very beautiful piece of architecture and art and history. And today we have a kind of a kooky situation. Our guest for today, Adrian Wareham, who we're very excited to meet with, had a family emergency. He had to fly to a different country at the last minute today. He's taking someone to the hospital right now. So we pulled together a rerun of a very popular episode. We've been watching the podcast lately, and we can see well which episodes are most popular. And a recent episode that came out, I believe, in January of this year on audio only, is one with Chris Brown. And in that particular episode, Chris talks a bit about the math of piano work, and so we're going to go ahead and review that session now. But I did want to highlight just a couple things quickly up front. I'll let myself do the general introduction after I do these sort of quick updates. I just want to remind you guys to make sure check out the podcast at pianotechradio.com. Check out the blog at Piano Technicians Masterclass substack.com. Make sure to follow us on the socials at Piano Tech Masterclass, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. And of course, last but not least, we definitely have a couple of masterclass situations coming up. One of them is a more convention style presentation we're doing in June. We have a handful of instructors. We're going to do an all-day event. We're bringing back Jim Wilson, who was a very popular guest. We're also going to have Mark Sarazano, who is also a very popular guest. And in addition to that, we will have Glenn Bingham coming back, again, another popular masterclass presenter. And there also may be some surprises included as well, which I will leave to revealing at a later time. And I guess that's probably enough for this quick intro from me. And I'll let Emrys queue up the recording of our previous session with Chris Brown. That is generally on kind of math in piano trade and much, much more as well. Let's cue that up, Emrys.
Hello, hello. Yeah. Okay. There we go. Welcome, one and all, to Piano Tech Radio Hour once again. Great to see you out there in global Wi-Fi internet land, out there on YouTube and Facebook, and here in the Zoom chat. By the way, if you are out there on Facebook or YouTube and you're watching live, then you do have the chance to join us here on Zoom. So I will quickly pull together a link so that you can do so. Give me 1 second here to find it. Search this page and made a note of it. Can't find it. There's that. Here it is. So if you're viewing us on YouTube or Facebook and you want to join us, I've got a link for you. You'll just register quickly, and then you'll be able to jump on with us here on the Zoom call. I'll put that in the chat right now so that people can hop in. And oftentimes we do end this early. We do end the stream early, so it's advantageous to get in here and jump in. I don't think I put the full link here, so give me 1 second. I'll get that out. For some reason, it didn't copy. So let's do this again. And I'm also putting some other information in the chat there on Facebook and YouTube, which you will see, and I'll explain in a moment. But we'll quickly, what I did put there on Facebook and YouTube already is a link to subscribe to the podcast, which I totally recommend everyone does. Yeah, there we go. And I got that info, and I might as well share the same stuff here in the chat window for our viewers here on Zoom. And then we'll kind of get going. Good to see everyone. Let me just double check that we've got everybody let in from the audience. I will make you co-host, Chris, in case you need to let anybody else in. Looks like we got a good turnout here, and yet more waiting in the wings. Okay. All right. I think that's sufficient for us to start rolling. And then I'll just slowly let people in as they trickle in from here on forward. And it is officially then time to say, welcome to Piano Tech Radio Hour. We gather here every Saturday to meet with and learn from the most fascinating and knowledgeable folks in the piano world, including manufacturers, rebuilders, musicians, makers of other instruments, and of course, piano techs. Let a few other people in here. I'll also spotlight myself or everyone, and I guess today's guest is a little surprise based on my email. It's a little bit cryptic, so I'll feature our guest today. If you know him by face, you'll answer your mystery there. But yeah, our mutual goal here is to become better at our craft, help each other, create an ever more musical world together. And Piano Tech Radio Hour is brought to you by Piano Technicians Masterclasses. That is an online learning resource bringing you cutting-edge instruction from piano industry masters without leaving your home. You can find out more at pianotechniciansmasterclass.com. If you'd like to keep up with us, attend live sessions every week easily, and support the future growth of this fine production, you can subscribe to Piano Tech Radio Hour at bit.ly/join PTRH. That's bit.ly/join PTRH, all lowercase. And I want to say up front here, make sure to check out our most recent masterclass on French polish by Doug Gregg. That was an excellent one. I put a link there in the chat for the Zoom session, as well as YouTube and Facebook. And then also, we will be having a masterclass you could sign up for with David Clavins, the innovative piano designer from Europe, who created these pianos you have to climb a staircase to play, as well as a new piano design he's created. This is very small, una corda, one string per note, with a very intentional design and form function that we're not used to seeing. And he'll be talking about piano design and steel construction, and the benefits of various materials in piano making. And I'll put the link in there. That'll be on piano design, again, April 20th, Thursday, coming up here pretty soon. And that's 3 p.m. Pacific time. If you go and you want to sign up earlier than later, because the one-off lecture pricing goes up as the time goes by, just to incentivize people who get on the board early and make sure we can plan and prepare properly. And you can also just subscribe to Piano Technicians Masterclasses at the Craftsman level, and you'll automatically be able to attend that. And that's only $79 per month. And then you'll be able to attend every masterclass we have every third Thursday of the month moving forward. And those will be at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. Just kind of like a nice meeting of the minds you can put in your calendar. And if you can't make it live, you can always make the recording. And then I'll put a feedback link, of course, in the chat later. You can always subscribe to our podcast as well. In fact, our guest today, who I will introduce in a moment, was recently a previous episode of Radio Hours released as a podcast for him. So that's a good one. So who is our guest? Is Chris Brown. And that podcast session that came out recently was him talking about trial and error in the piano as a sort of intentional practice of learning and refinement in the piano tuning and elsewhere. So you can check that one out for free at the podcast. It's Piano Tech Radio Hour podcast. If you search, you can find it anywhere. I'll make an introduction now to our guest today, Chris Brown, RPT. He started work as a piano tech in 1977, And before I continue, let's let in a few more people. And then he graduated, of course, in North Bennett Street School, if not the finest institution for learning piano technology. He has worn many hats in his career: college technician, concert tuner, rebuilder, private customer, piano care provider, teacher, and now designer, engineer, and manufacturer. In 2005, Chris officially specialized in grand regulation rebuilding, and he started work on the tools and protocols that have become the Grand Work system. Good regulations do benefit from customer, tech, dealer, and manufacturer focus. With the Grand Work system, Chris has reduced the experience needed to successfully regulate grand pianos. His goals are to help those entering the trade and those hiring folks entering the trade enhance the work for both beginners and experienced technicians. So that should give a great background. Really excited to have you back again, Chris. How are you doing today?
Good, thanks.
Awesome. So, we'll talk a little bit of an intro here on just kind of what you've been up to since the last time we chatted. You've been putting some YouTube videos up actually for many years now. And we thought it might be interesting to kind of check out your YouTube channel, just maybe call out a few interesting videos, both historical ones that are popular, as well as maybe some recent ones that you think people might find interesting. And then beyond that, we'd love to talk about some of the articles that you've been writing on your blog if we have time, as well as, giving an overview of some of the materials that you've been submitting for the PTG journal. It seems like for quite a while now. How long have you said you've been doing an ongoing series of articles for the Guild Journal, Piano Technicians Guild Journal? How long do you know has that been going on?
No, the ongoing articles are for me on my blog.
Okay, on your blog. Okay.
The journal did take about 10 of them.
Okay.
Had me edit them down to 4 submissions.
Okay. And what are the release dates of those? Like, when did those come into the journal? All within the past year or few years, or?
It was either last year or the year before. There was one in 2015. My enthusiasm for key steps was surging as I had all kinds of notions of how to use them. And recently, my colleague, a colleague, quoted me on one of the uses I do not use them for.
That's funny.
Sorry, I went down a wormhole there. It's the same with the videos. I did not land fully formed on this planet, and I continue to learn. And so my more recent version.
Clearly you did land on this planet from some other planet, because you're a very unique
maybe.
type of alien being with super skills. But yeah, okay, go ahead.
So the more recent content is more up to date on my path of discovery. And it's not like these are earth-shattering discoveries, but some of them make a difference. And so although I may have spoken confidently in 2015 about key dip as a use for key steps, it was just impractical. You couldn't get them small enough. And anyway, it led me into a better way to take measurements for setting up on the bench, which is using the action. I mean, each of the protocols that I have they stand on the shoulders of the protocols that we all know and grew up with, but they're a little bit different. Error and accumulated error is a problem. And when you're out on the bench, the piano may not be with you. And even if it is with you, if you do work that needs adjustment in the piano, it's a bit frustrating, annoying, and costs extra time. So if
Right.
you set up on the bench to just do the work accurately, you have better light and a better height.
I will, oh, look at that.
This is the full part of the full Monty. This is the full Monty custom key bed, and it's on a base that adjusts automatically. But I have a version that just goes on your bench, and then I have a version of the tools that you can set up and with a little more elbow grease get the same results on your bench with your tools mostly. But the key step is sort of the key to it. This is what it looks like, and I mean, it's not my idea to have a block with a machine screw in it, but I realized it was at the point where I realized, and this is pretty slow of me, that I should, first of all, regulate my 1 and 88, and at the time also my first and last sharps, to their final height, then put the little device underneath it and turn it up to just touch. That way, the key is finished. When I've finished my leveling, which is what I was using it for, then those keys would be leveled. Well, the thing about that is that when this just touches, the key is sitting on the balance rail and the back rail, and the key step, which is sitting on the front rail. So it becomes, the key becomes a gauge for the shape of the key frame. And it's very accurate. It fits on front key pin. And so it can travel back to your shop or up to your bench or whatever without falling off, getting confused with other ones. Anyway, there's a whole series of steps that employ this for both key leveling and also keyframe transfer of information out to the bench to set up so that you don't have rework when you come back to the piano.
So to utilize that, does the action stack have to come off and you pop it on top of a key pin, or what's the process of utilizing that?
You have to take off the front. You need to have the shipping rail off, so that and the action free of the cavity.
Mm-hmm.
So that you can lift 1 and 88 high enough to get the punchings off and put the key step on.
Mm-hmm. And
Now,
what that does is give you a standardized key height, or what is it? I'm still gathering the function of it. Yeah.
You take the key height that is there,
Mm-hmm.
and you measure it physically with the key step. So you turn up or down its machine screws so that it just touches the underside of the key, sitting on the front rail of the key frame.
With the punchings off, right?
With the punchings.
Yeah.
So in a Steinway, if you have a crowned front rail fit, you need to have the cheek blocks in and bed those cheek blocks so that they hold the key pins down, completing the fit, but don't overbear on it. So the process of trying to develop this system has taught me a lot about what I do and what we do and what we've been told and the truths in it and the partial truths. Currently, I have a Steinway C in my shop, which this is the action to it, which spent some time down on the Cape here in Massachusetts, where it was exceedingly humid and a whole bunch of the hammers just popped. Or actually, it's like this, popped.
Right.
And the keys were all seized up. And anyway, the owners of this piano moved into a smaller place. They wanted to sell it. And so I ended up sort of redoing the action part of this job. And so one of the interesting things was to revisit my keyframe bedding, because it had no symptoms. It seemed like it was fine. I never had a complaint, but it was cantilevered. All three rails were not grounded properly. And it's interesting. I think at the time I took the whole action apart, bedded the keyframe on the key bed, then reassembled, because when I took it apart, the keyframe, and I backed up the balance rail, I didn't take it apart, but when I backed up the balance rail, the back rail and the front rail then proceeded to fit properly. So it was an easy thing to rectify, and I used a W&G keyframe bedding tool to monitor this. But I thought I had done, a lot of effort and money went into this job. I thought it was perfect, but it wasn't. And consequently, if you took the action the way that was, and whatever kinds of sampling you did in the piano, when you get to the bench, they're not going to work, because the keyframe wasn't fitting back there. Now you're fitting it out on the bench to where. A hazard of the hold down system the Steinway employs is that it can force a fit that has repercussions in other places in the action. And I came into confrontation with this, trying to set up an action on a station with a technician. I was delivering this station, and I did a class the night before, and in the class, I had skipped the step of bedding the cheek box. It was there on my protocol list, but I hadn't done it because it was a brand new Steinway B. And what I discovered was that both of the cheek blocks bore on those pins more than they needed to. And because they did, they forced up, vectors went out into the action. And when I tried to fit it on the bench, went round and round in circles. So, yeah. The other thing that I'm doing that you mentioned, I have some videos, and they're home videos. Mostly my head is up like this, and you see my hands.
And I'm going to put a link right now into the chat for your YouTube channel, just so people can, we'll go there in a few minutes just to kind of see some of what you're doing and check it out.
The other thing I've been doing is, as you mentioned, I've been writing blog type articles. They're not very long. The ones that got published in the journal recently were 3 or 4 each. And then, of course, some stuff was weeded out too as I went. And recently, although I veered from the course, I'm at, I don't know, about the 35th episode or something. So I'm long-winded in one way, but each article is short, and it's identified as to what I'm talking about. But what I did was I took a series of a slideshow that I created for an online class early in the pandemic with a piano that I'd recently been working on. I just had taken some still pictures and I put them together into a slideshow. And I gave the class, and they worked well. And then I wrote captions for all of them and posted it. So that was sort of a leg up from just the picture. The picture is definitely a leg up from the words, but the caption helps to key you into what's happening in the picture.
Mm-hmm.
But whenever you use a picture in a class, or, in this case, for a PowerPoint presentation, there's always more that can be said. And so I sort of took that notion and just started at the beginning, and photo by photo talked about what was in the photo. There are a few places where I added photos. There are a couple of places where I went off on a tangent with a different piano. Recently, in fact, I've done that. But a virtue of it is that it takes the process sort of from the beginning toward the end. I may never actually get to the end. I don't know. But there's a lot to be said, way more than fills a class. For a while, I was doing training sessions at the National pre-COVID, and it went from being 4 sessions, and I was doing them at my booth in the exhibition hall, to being like 3 days worth of sessions. And you still don't really get through it all. But anyway, writing the articles is a learning experience, because you've got to take these things that we know or think we know and use words to describe them. And words are slippery anyway. And try and not misrepresent or confuse. And in that process, I've got to pin myself down. What do I mean? What am I talking about? What is the name for this thing? And so.
Yeah, it's a great process. I mean, I feel like everybody should, even people who don't, traditionally teach, or, you should try teaching, right? Or if you don't write articles or books or whatever, you should try, right? Because it's part of the educational process. I think, I know it's hard for people who aren't into that and haven't done it before, especially, right? Because it's a big step. But, kudos to those folks that are stepping up and, saying, "Oh, I'll teach a class at the convention," right? Oh, okay, I'll get on. And, we've had some folks who came and did some radio hours and master classes, even for us, that haven't necessarily done a lot of that before. And I'm always just very encouraging of folks to, to do it for the very first time or the next time. Because like you said, it's not only a benefit to everyone else, it's a benefit to you, because then you know better what you're talking about. And I have to say, like, even for me, I'm often, because I have a team of technicians in New York, and we have a new technician now in the Chicago area, always trying to explain things. And I would say just like piano tuning stuff in general is some of the hardest stuff to explain, or you're like, just even tuning stuff where you're talking about, so there's this partial, so there's a string that's ringing, and it's got, all these partials happening at the same time. And this one has to line up with this one, and that one has to line up with that one. And you got to play this note at the same time. And I noticed myself, trying to explain things just like coincident partials in actual situations, and even haven't had it to explain it several times. It's just not easy to communicate, right? And putting it into words is different than knowing how to do it. So yeah, I mean, kudos to you for jumping in there and doing this stuff.
So they're self-styled. I'm sort of writing for myself in a way. Who is my audience? There's stuff for beginners, because I'm going through and listing, tipping my hat to a lot of things that we all have done over and over. But along the way, I think there's something for everybody. I'm teaching myself. I'm, fairly experienced. So, hopefully they're enjoyable to read as well.
Yeah, I will take a minute here and bring up the channel, which I did link to. in the chat of both. I'll wait for this ad to run on my computer, which is always annoying when you're doing this. But I shared links to your blog articles, both here in the Zoom chat as well as on Facebook, YouTube, so people can check those out. I also shared a link to the actual YouTube channel of yourself, so people can click on that and check that out. And then I think what I'll do right now, just make sure I get the right window open for sharing. Just give me 1 second on that. I'll share screen. We'll check out just the channel itself and kind of peruse the videos and talk about what may be the most interesting, kind of give people an overview of your thought process on this stuff. And so are you able to see, is everyone able to see my screen here? Just let me know, Chris. Can you see it?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And can you hear me okay? My little
Yes.
microphone icon is making it look like there's no sound coming through, but I don't think that's true. All right, so here I am on your channel, youtube.com/@ Chris Brown RPT. And I don't know if I can.
By the way, the picture that you see at the top, I should really change, but you notice how our damper's not there? This goes,
Right here.
goes back to previous versions of my system for taking samples. And the current system, if you don't have friction, you do the whole thing fully assembled and it's very fast. Back then, I was doing samples, and I was doing samples of dip that required three, the keys on either side of the dip to be accurate enough to take the dip sample. Now, anyways, it's an odd picture. And there's shop dust all over everything too. But there's a playlist, and the most current playlist is, I think it's called Baby Grand Regulating. And
okay, let me admit a couple people that just showed up here. Sorry for that. Admit. Okay, and then yeah, just if people aren't familiar with YouTube, right? You can just go to the videos link. I'll go to your playlist link there in a minute, and it'll show the most recent. If you look on the latest tab. You can also look at the popular tab. We were looking at this, Chris and I, earlier. We noticed the most popular ones are somewhat older, and probably because it had more time to accrue views. And then, of course, you can check out the playlists. Was there a particular playlist you wanted to feature here?
Well, the Baby Grand Regulating is the most recent, and it has a virtue of being more current on the one hand, and the videos are all approximately 5 minutes in length, so they're more digestible.
Yeah, that's really incredible. To be honest, it's great to like. I know so many technicians, beginner, but even quite experienced. Hopefully, by the time you get a lot of experience, you could teach someone else, at the grand regulation process, right? But yeah, so many people are like, I've done the exam to become an RPT, like I know how to regulate, I've done a few, but I would love to see an experienced veteran go through the regulation process, right?
One of the interesting things about this series, I do veer off onto a couple of other pianos, but pianos are individuals, and the pianos we meet in the field are often not showroom quality pianos. They are what they are, and they have the problems that they have. And this particular one, if you follow this video, it takes you on a quick tour of the spillage that's in the back. And
should we watch a couple? Is it worth it, or did you just want to share the list and just so people know about it? We don't have to watch the full ones, but we could check it out a little bit.
Yeah, if you want to. I'll go a recent one.
Okay, let me I think I had the sharing sound off on this. Let me stop share and reshare for a second, and then we'll go there. All right, so we should be sharing sound now, and then go to 33 here, or
yeah, there's something up in that.
All right, let's check out the most recent one. We'll get the sound up.
Next step is I'm going to do final level. And before I do that, notice this is just on a bench. It could be your bench. Go through and settle. The action is fixed in position, side to side and front to back. Less. And it stabilizes things. Okay. Now I have to move. What I just did there, front I settled the punchings at the front of the key and the balance of the key and the back of the key, and you can do another version along the, just rubbing your hand down the length of the shanks with downward pressure that will settle any air that's in the knuckles or the whip cushions. It only takes, less than a minute to do, and if you do it as you go, then you end up with quite a stable result at the end. Key covering job is that some of them are a little hard to resolve.
And here you're just spacing the keys, right? Or
yeah, I'm squaring them.
oh, okay, squaring them, yeah.
And they are not in great shape. So, and it had a terrible key covering job on it.
Yeah, what is this from some sort of sanding from the key cover?
That's just what I inherited. Yeah. I mean, that's one of the interesting things of being a piano technician is your exploration of the world of what people think and what they do.
Right. Yeah, well, there's plenty. Well, I mean, that's part of the impetus of sharing, through the master classes and trying to curate the content as well. Because, I think a big reason people have all these different ways that they do things is because they didn't have anybody to show them how to do it, right? They just had to
what I'm
figure
doing
it out.
here is I'm adjusting the jack position by samples and a straight edge. And arguably that makes your regulation more consistent, and it's certainly easier and faster to do as well. Geometrically, it's more consistent.
So let's go back to that and pause it here. So what exactly, let's see here. The jack positions. So how is this straight edge? What is the straight edge doing right now? It's putting pressure. Yeah, tell me what's going on.
Well, it's lining up with the samples that I adjusted by eye and by hand at either end of each section.
And you're talking about jack position within the repetition window there?
Yeah.
Is that?
Well, so with my right hand, I manipulate the tool to adjust the ones that are one way or the other. And I make them a straight line. So, you can go from knuckle to knuckle, but the knuckles aren't perfect. And, how they sit on the rail may not be perfect. But if you have those jacks all in the line, that simplifies the geometry that's being translated from the key through the hammer.
Got it.
Go back further. I mean, since we're here, we might as well talk about some real stuff. Back. Okay, look at this picture. You see the little light there? That's a little Larry. I make these things that go on the end of them that it can stand up with vertically like that or horizontal. It's a very useful little light. And
you said it's a little layer?
L-I-L, Lil Larry is what the manufacturer calls it.
That's a brand of flashlight or of light?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So in the foreground, you see W&G regulating tools. You see my key steps, and you see, do you see these, the key?
The weights?
The weights, yeah.
Yeah.
Those are pairing weights and down weights, up weights and pairing weights. So I think a minimum of 20 grams up weight, that is the weight that a key will lift at the front, on, with just its the weight of the hammer and so forth. 20 grams is a healthy minimum so that you don't get into repetition problems. And if it goes below that, it's worth taking out a lead at the front of the key or doing something. But when you weigh off, of course, you want to set it to what you want it to be. And I have increments from 20 to 25 grams, 25 grams up weight in the high treble. And then pairing weights, there are two ways to use those. One is the balance weight system from David Stanwood. Balance weight is the weight that you put at the end of the key. Say there were no friction and the key were balancing, neither end of the key is touching down. With this weight on the front of the key, it would stay there, ideally. Of course, you do have friction, and the more friction you have, the more that's obscured, which is why the up weight and down weight system of measuring is very useful. Because what happens is those have a speed to them. And if you're, what you do is you put the up weight on the key, press the key, and the key will lift that. Then you take the pairing weight and put it on the up weight. And the pairing weight plus the up weight equals the down weight. So the first pair that you see there are probably 34 grams and 20 grams. And you add them together, so that gives you a 54 gram down weight and a 20 gram up weight. And as you go up, maintaining that's a balance weight of 37 grams. 37 grams at the front of the key, it will stay where it is. You match the speeds of the up weight and the down weight. And if that pair of speeds on a particular key is slower than its neighbors, there is more friction in that system than the neighbors. So it's very useful in troubleshooting friction and helping to get it even, which really makes a lot of difference to the playability. So as you go up that row of pairs, the next pair would be 32 grams over 21 up weight and 32 grams pairing weight. That combination of will render the same balance weight of 37. So there's kind of a, also the balance weight 37 is halfway between the up weight and the down weight. Now the other way you can use these weights is to have all the down weights be the same. And that is a style that many pianos employ. And so instead of changing the increments of pairing weight by 2 grams each, as you change your up weights by 1 gram going up, the pairing weights go down by 2 grams. If you change that by 1 gram each, your up weight goes up a gram, your pairing weight goes down a gram, and the down weight stays in the same place. So it's very matter of fact, and because they're going from section to section, you don't have to choose where you're going to switch. It's just a question of the clarity of the symptoms that you get, because they all overlap each other. And they'll give the same answer if the answer is visible, if it will actually lift the up weight in particular. Okay, so enough said about that, but that gives you a little content of what I do and teach. And
yeah, is it worth highlight, either watching any more snippets, highlighting any of the playlists, kind of telling people, showing people what you've been up to recently, or
I think if you go to that particular playlist, that's it moves from first steps of keyframe bedding and sampling to setting up on the bench. And I'm using, as you can see, it's a piece of MDF, but it could be your bench. So it does have the regulating rack, which is part of my system, and it does have key steps. But most of the rest of the tools are just the tools you already have in your kit, and the knowledge that you already have in your kit that is applied just slightly differently. So if you go to that playlist, you can, pick something out that interests you or you have a question about, or you can go from one to the next to the next. If, you might want to do that in small increments because my voice does drone on. And even though they're only 5 minutes each, it's a lot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's nice you have a little description here, maybe on at least this one, maybe all of them,
There's a
of
little
what's going on. And that's helpful. Yeah. Yeah. And I think, to watch it like you would watch Netflix, probably not, right? This isn't like the latest blockbuster fiction film or something. But if you're like literally doing a regulation, it's, invaluable. You could sit down and
this will not be a terrible rabbit hole. You won't have to sit all night with me. But it may provide you with, just seeing another person's point of view.
Just don't ask your significant other to binge watch.
No,
before bed at night. They're probably rather watch The Late Show or something. Yeah. This is cool though. So, and this is also some of the most recent stuff that we saw when we looked at the sort of playlist. Well, if you look at the videos in general, it looks like a lot of this is also the most recent stuff you've put up. This last one was almost just a day ago, and very recent stuff. So that's really cool. Should we maybe click on a couple of these blog articles that you had highlighted as maybe a next step in what we review today? Does that sound like an interesting avenue to check out?
Yeah.
Okay, I did put links to these in the chat.
If you go to one of the videos,
one of these videos,
of the recent ones.
Okay, you want to do like 32 here, or
so go to 32 and look in the notes.
Okay, here
should be a link to the website, so you can just go directly over.
Oh yeah, no, I've got the link. I can I'll just open it right here.
But it shows
this one.
Do it too.
Oh, how to find it easily. Yeah. I put links to these blog articles, but a blog article on weighing off like this. That's cool. And does each video doesn't have a blog article, but some of them do?
No. It's a recent notion prompted by my son, who's very savvy in these things, that I ought to.
Got it.
I mean, ultimately, probably a sensible thing would be to make a video and write an article about the contents of that video and link it that way. But at the moment, it's not that coordinated.
You know what? Use some AI, Chris.
AI is on the way too, I'm sure.
Actually, I could give a little.
It's stealing my stuff as we speak.
I mean, just briefly, I'll mention what would be interesting is you could go here if you want to start your blog article. You go to the transcript. Stamps, and you could grab that text, and you could go to like an AI, and you could pop it in there and say, hey,
see what it says, see what it's learned.
Yeah, exactly. This is maybe I'll even do it. Let me see if I might do it in the background while you're talking about the last one, just to see what happens here. And I'll share it and see if there's anything useful. But I know some people are still just getting their feet wet with the AI stuff. So why don't you? I'll get a new tab and I'll try that out on a different screen here. But why don't you explain this article here while I'm
Well, I mean, mostly since the tools that I've made are for regulating grand pianos, that has been my undertaking the last 15 years or so. But meanwhile, I'm a piano tuner, and early on, I attended a class by Al Sanderson. And I went from the blood, sweat, and tears I poured into the traditional round the circle of fifths tuning. I immediately jumped to a version of what I remembered from his class of using major thirds that are linked to each other in a sensible way. And I've ended up with basically the piano tells me what to do. I mean, I know what to look for and listen to, and I'm imposing this structure on it, but the piano, I mean, I guess it does for all tuners, but it's instead of counting beat speeds, I take the relative information of beat speeds. Okay, so if you take A and go down an octave to the next A, and you go down 2 octaves to two A's below A440, and you fill in the major thirds from the lower A to the middle A, and you compare their beat speeds to each other, they should be approximately 4:5. That's a little bit of a complicated relationship, but actually, if you just take those 3 major thirds and have them speed up, when you go to the major third in the next octave up, so you've got A now, A, C sharp, F, and A, and you go to that next C sharp, and you try and fit that into the pattern with a good octave from the C sharp below it, it will force you to correct. And then when you go to the F, and then you check out your top A, those 6 major thirds, if they ascend in speeds, will force you into the right place for a best temperament very quickly. And anyway, I go on to explain how I do the rest of it. So I've written this one little thing, a little gesture toward the tuning part of my career. And I've given a couple of classes on it, maybe more in the future, because tuning is a real important part of what we do, how we organize ourselves.
Should we check out one of these other articles?
Sure, yeah.
Let's see here. Let's bring up this one. CA glue pin block repair.
Okay, here's another one. I had a Steinway A3 customer, well, customers. They were in their late 80s, and they had a limited budget, and they had, this lovely Steinway that was old and had a failing pin block. And I'd heard about this technology. It was in its infancy at the time, and I tried it, and it worked. It gave them a tunable piano. Then I could do the other things that were needed, and they had a playing piano. And I don't visit many pianos personally these days. I have somebody that does my tuning for me, by and large. But when I was visiting pianos, of course, I would meet all kinds of older pianos that had, to one degree or another, failing pin blocks. And particularly upright pianos, you have, what essentially is a very nice piano that, you're going to have to throw it out. So when CA glue came along, you could put it on its back, apply the glue, let it sit overnight, and worst comes to worst, if the structural damage inside was too severe, and this only happened to me once, then you just back away. They've paid you for the time to make this attempt. But if it does work, now you can restore the piano, or you can regulate the piano, or you can tune the piano. And they go from having something that is more or less a piece of furniture into having a musical instrument again. It really changed our industry. Unfortunately, the enthusiasm for rebuilding uprights and even grands that aren't called Steinway or Mason and Hamlin or a European name has fallen by the wayside in favor of new pianos, which of course they're cheaper and some of them are very good for what you get. So expensive to restore. So what can I say? But CA glue, here's a little my version of what I do, if it can be useful.
Very cool. Should we check out the next one?
Okay.
All right. Let me 1 second here. All right. Get to the links, and then we'll wrap up here pretty soon because we're almost out of time. But I think we could probably check one more. Let me see here. Where do we have that? Here we go. Do this keyframe bedding one. And we'll put that over here.
Okay, there actually there are 3 articles on this. This is tucked in episode 29 of the KS stands for something like Key Steps to Grand Regulation, which was my slideshow. But this is a Mason A, which I was working on more recently and presented certain problems that weren't in the previous one. So it was kind of an interesting diversion. And I actually ended up revisiting keyframe bedding in 3 episodes. The first one is about the stiff keyframe like Mason or a Steinway. Second one is about flexible keyframes, the Asian approach as a generality in which the balance rail will fall rather than be suspended. And then the third is edge cases. For instance, those that don't have any Clyde bolts, and there are a couple of other sort of curiosities, but they all sort of resonate with each other in terms of your thinking and your process, so that understanding the one can help you understand the others better. And in fact, it has changed my process a little bit, the order of operations, certainly from the one I originally was taught, the Steinway order of operations. Really, you can go in any order. It's like you can tune a piano from any string, but for practical reasons, going in a specific order has efficiencies that are, it's worth honing that order. And so anyway, these articles elucidate that a bit.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing these, and I'm sure this gives people a lot more to kind of go down the rabbit hole and learn things, and it's always appreciated. Like I said, for your own sake and for our sake, right? To kind of advance knowledge and share these things. Briefly before we wrap up and roll out, I did take the transcript of that video and I put it into an AI, and it took a little bit of cajoling. I had to kind of modify it a couple of times, but I think it's not bad. Here, listen. Oh shoot, where did I put that? Where's that window? We got in this video. I fed it a little bio of you because at first it was just saying the presenter does this, the presenter does that. Okay, it says, in this video, Chris Brown RPT demonstrates how he marks and installs key weights in a piano. He shows how he achieves balance by using key weights and adjusting them accordingly. Chris also explains the importance of marking the correct side of the key and demonstrates how he installs the key weights using flexible CA glue. Through his detailed explanation and demonstration, Chris showcases his expertise in piano regulation and rebuilding. The video is a great resource for piano technicians, enthusiasts, and anyone interested in the inner workings of a grand piano.
So what it fails to tell you is that I'm putting in copper key weights, not lead.
Yeah.
And further,
Now it does have more, and that's the introduction.
It may have more, but this might be of interest to the technicians that
Yeah.
because the copper that I can get in a suitable size is just too hard to swedge. To come up with another solution, or David Stanwood has some copper that he shares with the people that do his system that is softer, I think, and he's threatened to send me a sample, but I haven't seen it yet. But anyway, there is a flexible CA glue that is designed for disparate materials, and the installation is much easier and much faster than swedging anyway.
I know David has really been exploring that methodology. What's up?
Thanks to AI for crediting me.
Yeah, well, I had to give it your bio for it to do that. What's that?
Yeah, you had to prompt it.
I had to do that, unfortunately. But well, once I gave it that, it was interesting. It spoke very flatteringly of you.
Well, feel free, anybody, to call or email or text me if you want to chat, or if you have a question, or if I can help you, or if I can unconfuse you on one of the things that I've said today.
That's very generous.
Or
yeah, and
read or see in my videos.
And I'll have to back you up on that. Chris is very generous with his time and his knowledge, so we appreciate that. And I'll also put some text in the Facebook, YouTube chat right now for people who want to follow up on anything. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just a final note that I'll be teaching at the National this summer. I have 3 classes. One of them is for novices on key leveling, of all things.
Yes, that's awesome. And Bruce is asking for a web address. You're asking for a web address for Chris's website?
It's grandwork, no S, dot, no,
yeah, it is grandwork.tools, right?
Grandwork.tools.
Yeah, grandwork.tools. Yeah, and also I linked to a couple articles on there in our chat here, but let me add it to our chat and the chat on Facebook and YouTube. We got grandwork.tools. I'll make it a clickable link in Zoom as well. There you go. Cool. Well, great. And we fit in a lot in the last five minutes there. We only went over a minute or two. Anything else before I wrap it up and do our outro here, Chris?
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Yeah. Thank you. All right. So yeah, for everybody that joined us today, thank you so much. We've reached the end of another musical journey here at Piano Tech Radio Hour. Of course, thanks again to Chris for joining us today. As always, we're brought to you by Piano Technicians Masterclasses, cutting-edge instruction from piano industry masters without leaving your home. If you just joined us today by signing up for the session individually, you can make your life more easy and convenient. You could subscribe to PTRH at just $16 a month. You'll get the recording of today's session in our member area, as well as automatic registration for each week's new session. You could sign up at bit.ly/PTRH. Oh, thank you for the compliment on my shirt. Triangle Piano Services. Actually, I was inspired partly by one of our radio hour guests. I'm forgetting Nick Gravagna, actually. He has a number of very fun kind of Hawaiian style shirts. I need some of those. But yeah, so if you subscribe to PTRH, it's great. It also helps us make the show bigger and better as we move forward here. It's bit.ly/PTRH. And then also, I've highlighted in the chat a couple more things. We did just have a French polish masterclass with Doug Gregg. If you want to check that out, it was highly recommended. Basically, you can do so much to make a piano look like it's been fully refinished, but you could do it in the client's home with inexpensive materials and not that much time. Pretty cool stuff. And so I put the masterclass link for that. That's over, but you can purchase a recording or subscribe as a craftsman level, and you could see that and other lectures from the past. And then the David Clavins masterclass is coming up on the 20th of April, just a few days from now on Thursday, 3 p.m. Pacific time, 6 p.m. Eastern time. He'll be talking about design and construction of pianos and steel, the use of steel in pianos, and compare and contrasting to other materials. And then I put a feedback link in the chat as well. And also make sure you subscribe to our podcast. It's Pianotech Radio, pianotechradio.com. I put a link for the subscribing in that. And by the way, I found out recently we are a top 100 performing arts podcast on Apple iTunes. So very excited to be making some progress, and that all comes from your support out there. So make sure to check out the podcast. Great for the car or the workshop or doing the dishes or whatever. And share it with your friends. Make sure to leave us a review, all that good stuff. Okay. I think that's enough for today. Appreciate everyone for attending, and we'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.